Shanti, good evening. Welcome.
Shanti, good evening.
Om Shanti, good evening.
Shanti. Everyone is doing well. Yeah. So we have Kajal Ben and Mihir Ben here. You want to say hello?
Hello. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, and welcome back to Simran Bhai. Simran Bhai was in India.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh bhai. Look forward to catching up soon. And this weekend to जा रहा हूँ DC, but next weekend Saurabh bhai मिलेंगे definitely. Next week we'll all be here. So look forward to catching up with you as well.
Sure. And welcome to Nisha Ben. Nisha Ben has joined us for the first time. Is that right? Nisha ji here.
Om Shanti, that's right. This is my first time to join here.
Welcome.
I was supposed to be there in person, but I couldn't come in today, but I will try to be there next week.
Sure, no problem. Would you like to maybe briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. So I go as Nish, based here in Indianapolis, and I came to know about Raj Yoga almost a year ago through social media, and then that sort of made me to love the content, resonated a lot for me from a growth perspective, and then I began to join all the online Zoom sessions through from California, from different locations last 1 year. So I have attended the basic training already. And I just got my vehicle. That's the reason I couldn't come in person for in Indianapolis, but I've been waiting to connect with the local group. So that's my quick background.
Nice. So welcome. You got your new vehicles. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. That's after COVID issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Nice. Great. Welcome. So today we thought to explore this theme of it's critical not to be critical. It's critical not to be critical. Do we find ourselves being critical at times? And what does it mean to be critical? Does it mean
Judgmental. Judgmental, to be judgmental.
Right. To be judgmental. Right. Being harsh on ourselves. Very good. Yeah. Sometimes we get critical about others, but actually most of the times we are critical about our own self. Right. So this inspiration of this came actually from, sometime this thought was coming that, these lingering thoughts about whatever has happened in the past or whatever is happening now, which many a times, obstruct in meditation, are these thoughts actually. Yeah. And, as we have grown up, from a scientific background, we are actually trained to have a critical mindset. We like in our research, we were always encouraged to, have a critical thinking so that we are, there to question, someone's work, and we feel that's how we will improve. And so critical mindset is supposed to be very important in professional world. But yet, and sometimes we, call it constructive criticism or feedback and all. But then in our journey of meditation, how sometimes, that kind of mindset of, kind of seeing where am I lacking, I mean, it's good to know, but sometimes a lot of thoughts around that don't allow us to experience meditation. And sometimes I feel that. And it's like we all have weaknesses, but then sometimes we become too critical about, our weaknesses, sometimes others' weaknesses, and that, the process of transformation is very interesting because we are transforming something negative into something positive. That's what we are essentially doing, the consciousness. But in this process, it's very important to focus on what is positive right now. Because it's only then that the energy of positivity will fill whatever is lacking in the soul. And that's why, God also, never would focus on our weaknesses. Even a mother would never focus on the weaknesses of her child. She would always focus on that what is, good about the child. And so how this critical mindset drains out the energy of the soul. And only when the soul is nourished, especially children, when children are kind of raised in that environment of a positive energy where, even mistakes are okay as long as we learn from them and grow. Right. There are a lot of scientific studies on this. It's like how we, as human beings, we tend to hold on to something negative more easily than something which is positive. It's like we might have had a beautiful vacation or a gathering, and 95% of the things would have been very good. But even if 5% of the things were not good, then, our focus generally tends to be towards those 5%. And in that process, we often lose, the context. We lose the context, we lose the perspective. That's what I have seen also. It's like, and then a small thing, if I just hold on to it, it kind of grows and grows and occupies my mind. And that's where it's like the soul is not able to then connect to God in meditation. Because God is incapable of holding anything negative or waste. And often we say, Om Shanti, Sanchit Bhai, often we say that we strive for perfection. And in this pursuit of perfection, many times we become critical of ourselves. And that's where, the more I'm able to see perfection in this moment, it's not like perfection, some random or some abstract concept where I feel everyone should be, at a particular level. But if I can see perfection in the way things are at this moment, and we call it imperfectly perfect. It's like in a story, in a drama, the story is perfect because that's the story. And if I can just completely detach myself and see the story as a story, I'll be able to then see the perfection within what is seemingly imperfect. So there is a very nice research on this. We'll maybe watch a nice little clip. It's a TED talk. I thought it was very nice. So maybe we can watch it together. It's about how we tend to get stuck in the negatives.
Hi, everyone. Gosh, I wish I could dance, but I can't, and you really don't want me to. So instead, I thought I would talk a little today about how people think. I'm fascinated by this question. I'm a social psychologist, which basically means I'm a professional people watcher. So this is what I do. I try to figure out how humans think and how we might be able to think better. And here's something I noticed a few years ago about how I seem to think. Here's a typical week in my life, which usually seems to revolve entirely around publishing papers. So here I am in the maximum of my artistic abilities as a stick figure, going along at baseline, and a paper gets accepted. I get this rush, this blip of happiness, and then I'm back to baseline by about lunchtime. A few days later, a paper might get rejected, and that feels pretty awful. And I wait for that blip to end, but somehow I just can't stop thinking about it. And here's the craziest part. Even if another paper gets accepted the next day, well, that's nice, but somehow I can't get that pesky rejection out of my head. So what is going on here? Why does a failure seem to stick in our minds so much longer than a success? Well, together with my colleague Amber Boydston in the political science department, I started thinking about this question of, do our minds get stuck in the negatives? We all know intuitively that there are different ways of thinking about things. The same glass, the saying goes, can be seen as half full or half empty. And there's a lot of research in the social sciences showing that depending on how you describe the glass to people, as half full or half empty, it changes how they feel about it. So if you describe the glass as half full, this is called a gain frame because you're focusing on what's gained, then people like it. But if you describe the same glass as half empty, a loss frame, then people don't like it. But we wondered, what happens when you try to switch from thinking about it one way to thinking about it another way? Can people shift back and forth, or do they get stuck in one way of thinking about it? Does one of these labels, in other words, tend to stick more in the mind? Well, to investigate this question, we conducted a simple experiment. We told participants in our experiment about a new surgical procedure, and we randomly assigned them to one of two conditions. For participants in the first condition, the first group, we described the surgical procedure in terms of gains. We said it had a 70% success rate. And for participants in the second group, we described the procedure in terms of losses. We said it had a 30% failure rate. So it's the exact same procedure. We're just focusing people's attention on the part of the glass that's full or the part of the glass that's empty. Perhaps unsurprisingly, people like the procedure when it's described as having a 70% success rate, and they don't like it when it's described as having a 30% failure rate. But then we added a twist. We told participants in the first group, you know, you could think of this as a 30% failure rate. And now they don't like it anymore. They've changed their minds. And we told participants in the second group, you know, you could think of this as a 70% success rate, but unlike the first group, they stuck with their initial opinion. They seemed to be stuck in the initial loss frame that they saw at the beginning of the study. We conducted another experiment. This time we told participants about the current governor of an important state who was running for re-election against his opponent. We again had two groups of participants, and we described the current governor's track record to them in one of two ways. We said that when the current governor took office, statewide budget cuts were expected to affect about 10,000 jobs. And then half the participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 40% of these jobs had been saved. And they like the current governor. They think he's doing a great job. The rest of the participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 60% of these jobs had been lost. And they don't like the current governor. They think he's doing a terrible job. But then, once more, we added a twist. For participants in the first group, we reframed the information in terms of losses. and now they didn't like the current governor anymore. And for participants in the second group, we reframed the information in terms of gains. But just like in the first study, this didn't seem to matter. People in this group still didn't like the current governor. So notice what this means. Once the loss frame gets in there, it sticks. People can't go back to thinking about jobs saved once they've thought about jobs lost. So in both of these scenarios, actually, the current governor gets ousted in favor of his opponent. Well, at this point, we were getting curious. Why does this happen? Could it be that it's actually mentally harder for people to convert from losses to gains than it is for them to go from gains to losses? So we conducted a third study to test how easily people could convert from one frame to another. This time, we told participants, imagine there's been an outbreak of an unusual disease and 600 lives are at stake. And we asked participants in one group, if 100 lives are saved, how many will be lost? And we asked participants in the other group, if 100 lives are lost, how many will be saved? So everyone just has to calculate 600 minus 100 and come up with the answer of 500. But whereas people in one group have to convert from gains to losses in order to do that, people in the second group have to convert from losses to gains. We timed how long it took them to solve this simple math problem. And what we found was that when people had to convert from gains to losses, they could solve the problem quite quickly. It took them about 7 seconds on average. But when they had to convert from losses to gains, well, now it took them far longer, almost 11 seconds. So this suggests that once we think about something as a loss, that way of thinking about it tends to stick in our heads and to resist our attempts to change it. What I take away from this research and from related research is that our view of the world has a fundamental tendency to tilt toward the negative. It's pretty easy to go from good to bad, but far harder to shift from bad to good. We literally have to work harder to see the upside of things. And this matters. So think about the economy. Here's economic well-being from 2007 to 2010. And you can see it tanked, just like we all remember. And then by late 2010, it had recovered by most objective measures. But here's consumer confidence over the same time period. You can see it tanks right along with the economy, but then it seems to get stuck. Instead of rebounding with the economy itself, consumers seem to be psychologically stuck back there in the recession. So oddly then, it may take more effort to change our minds about how the economy is doing than to change the economy itself. On a more personal level, what this research means to me is that you have to work to see the upside. Literally, this takes work. This takes effort. And you can practice this. You can train your mind to do this better. There is research out of UC Davis showing that just writing for a few minutes each day about things that you're grateful for can dramatically boost your happiness and well-being and even your health. We can also rehearse good news and share it with others. We tend to think, right, that misery loves company, that venting will help get rid of our negative emotions, that we'll feel better if we just talk about how terrible our day was. And so we talk, and we talk, and we talk about the boss who's driving us crazy, and the friend who never called us back, and the meeting at work where every little thing that could go wrong did. But we forget to talk about the good stuff. And yet that's exactly where our minds need the most practice. So my husband, who has this disconcerting habit of listening to what I say other people should do and then pointing out that, technically speaking, I'm a person too, has taken to listening to me for about 2 minutes on days when I come home all grumpy and complaining about everything. And he listens and he says, okay, but what happened today that was good? And so I tell him about the student who came up to me after class with this really interesting, insightful question. And I tell him about the friend who emailed me out of the blue this morning just to say hello. And somewhere in the telling, I start to smile. And I start to think that maybe my day was pretty decent after all. I think we can also work in our communities to focus on the upside. We can be more aware that bad tends to stick. One mean comment can stick with somebody all day, all week even. And bad tends to propagate itself, right? Somebody snaps at you and you snap back and you snap at the next guy too. But what if the next time somebody snapped at you, you forgave them? What if the next time you had a really grumpy waitress, you left her an extra large tip? Our minds may be built to look for negative information and to hold on to it. But we can also retrain our minds if we put some effort into it and start to see that the glass may be a little more full than we initially thought. Thank you.
I thought some of the experiments that she showed were really nice, and was really impressed by the research that they did. They flipped the question from negative to positive, but the participants would still hold on to the negative, and I feel that's so true. It doesn't take effort to change from positive to negative, but it does take effort from negative to positive. Right.
Yeah, very nice, Saurabh. That is why I think, Saurabh, they also say about the news, right? That news has a negative bias, and that is why it tells, because it's natural. People will naturally get affinity towards the negative news.
Right. Very
Very
nice.
yeah.
Right. I think Nishben says, isn't it sometimes positive to be critical of ourselves to keep us improve and humble? Of course it is. And so I really need to also know what is it that I'm working on. It is important. Like it has to be, the focus has to be on the positive. It's like, suppose I have a habit that I want to change. Let's say, I'm lazy, for example. Then rather than thinking about I should not be lazy, I have to be thinking about what I need to do. Being active, right? What I need to do. So when the focus is on that, then automatically laziness will go away. And so the focus always has to be positive. And I was just thinking, especially in our daily classes and Murlis also, it's like it will always start with a positive. Like how, the Supreme Soul sees us souls in what light, and then slowly, and then Baba would come to what is it that we have to work on, and then a process will be clarified. This is what we need to do, and that's how we can then work on it. Right.
Yeah, Baba says, look at the Visheshta, virtues of a person. Then you won't be critical. You won't see his or her, the soul's weaknesses if you look at the virtues. And I think living in gratitude also, brings a lot of positivity.
Right. Very nice.
This example, if we even take it in our daily life, day-to-day basis, like if our first thought in the morning is negative, then even if the second or third thought is positive, it still has so much burden on our complete day. So I think that example matches, and as like the first thought, which if it comes, it's connected to the Supreme Soul, and it can be yes through the meditation. If we start our day towards meditation and listening to all the positive affirmations and the teachings which our university gives, then our complete day goes with a bliss. But yes, as you said, that the laziness of my personal, because I was thinking, okay, how to make it better the next day. So laziness is another thing which nahi so jao ek ghanta aur those negative thoughts keeps playing, or maybe the drama he goes into the drama side. So thank you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. I think, beginning the day and even before going to bed, if we give all those positive affirmations to ourselves, that also helps.
Right. Very nice. And especially in relationships, when we look at relationships, many times we become critical in our relationships, and that's where the energy also gets drained out. So I'll show another video, and it's actually about relationships and a principle based on what we are discussing, that we can imbibe.
Very beautiful.
I thought in a very simple way to explain the 100-0 principle. So I take full responsibility of the relationship and I expect nothing in return. And what was the step one? What was the step one?
Expecting nothing in return.
Demonstrate kindness and
expect nothing in return.
Respect.
The second one was respect.
And in the first one it said, even if the other person doesn't deserve it. And that was really nice, because sometimes we first judge, isko deserve karte hai ki nahi karte hai, and then we will. But step one says, it's like unconditional. And in spirituality, that's what we are learning, right? Atmik Drishti. It's like soul conscious vision. It's like seeing everyone as, God's children, beings of light, pure, peaceful, without any, baggage. Yeah. And then what was step 2? Or was step 2? Yeah,
I
it
think
was
step 2 is the one where you take 100% responsibility and expect nothing.
expect nothing in return. Mhm. Right. Expect nothing in return. I think this is where we really have to be soul conscious. Only then I can not expect anything back in return. Otherwise, there is always a slight expectation that comes.
बाबा भी तो यही कहते हैं ना, उपकार करो चाहे आगे वाला कितना भी अपकार के कितना भी डिसरेस्पेक्ट करे, हमें फिर भी उपकार करो.
And
I have one question.
yes.
So, this like, don't be critical about others. Look for positive things in others. Is one sanskar that we need to work on ourselves to make it better. I think what I find really hard is that when you are giving your 100% and you're trying to see positive in others, but then others don't see, they only see negative in you. What do you do in that situation? Because then I don't expect anything good from you in return, but also I don't expect anything negative either.
Correct. Yeah, good question. So what if we are constantly at the receiving end of negativity? So which power we should use then? Power to discern. What else? If you are at the
tolerance, acceptance.
Acceptance. In these things, we always have to, I feel it helps to see, okay, in this situation, what power I need to use and invoke. And if I'm constantly bombarded with negativity, then I really need to use the power to tolerate. Of course, if it crosses a limit where a relationship becomes, abusive, for example, then I have to take a stand also. But then in general day-to-day things, if I use the power to tolerate and just forget about it, ignore it, just keep on seeing the other as a soul, and then have that unconditional love for them, generally that solves the things.
Just adding on to that question and the comment is that I think most of us practically struggle to recognize how much to tolerate and how much not to tolerate. I mean, sometimes we lose it very quick. Sometimes some people suck it up and then tolerate way too much than they should be, probably, and then where people take advantage. And I was listening to a lady was saying this, that she cooked all 3 meals for her husband for 25 years. Not even single day the man had ever cooked even a breakfast, not even a egg or omelet for her. So in this example, she's given 100%. And in one of the video that you shared showed that sometimes the person might change. 100 might become 100. But I was just reflecting that might not be the case all the time. So how do we develop ourselves when to walk away and when to tolerate? I really think something I struggle myself.
Yeah, that's always there, when to face and when to tolerate. And that's where, I mean, if it is something which is coming against my principles, for example, then we shouldn't tolerate. But if it is something that, I mean, generally in relationships, for example, living with partners or parents, right? And then small things, sometimes what happens is, because everyone is a package, right? No one is perfect. So we like them, we love, our family, but everyone will have something which wouldn't be according to, how I, see things. Like, for example, I may be, too much conscious of cleanliness. Like, I want everything to be clean, but maybe, someone whom I'm living with, they don't have the same standard for cleanliness. Their standard is different. And now we are living together. So somewhere I have to tolerate. Somewhere I have to adjust and accommodate. So in those situations, I have to, there is no other option. I mean, I can clearly, lose my peace of mind. And, but then in these kind of situations, I feel it's important to, accept the person as a package, and then see which power I need to use. But then if a relationship, becomes abusive, for example, like a partner is not respecting the other. And so then I feel, if it crosses a limit, then we need to, say, I need to move out of it. I need to protect myself, my dignity as well. So that's how I feel. Both, are sometimes we need to tolerate, sometimes we need to face as well. Both situations are there. So the rule of thumb, they say, is a situation. If it becomes a situation, then I need to face it. But if it's a relationship, a normal relationship, then I should tolerate. And if it's a situation, if it becomes a situation, then we should face it. But if it's just, a relationship, then it's good to tolerate. Right? That's what Baba says, right? We should, if there is just a relationship, and if I make the other person happy, if I, suppose, a person is trying their best, but they're not able to, come up to my level, for example. I have very high expectations, but I need to, respect them wherever they are. And so last week, this thought was emerging, unconditional respect. We say unconditional love, but at times respect is even more important than love. And respecting the other person, not because, of what they have done or not done, but because of their pure presence and what they have brought to my life. It's just a very silent respect, unconditional respect. But that's where, sometimes that's where ego comes in the way of actually us, right. Yeah, that's where it somewhere interferes. And in psychology, they say criticism is a means of protecting my ego. It's like I'm protecting my ego, and I'm projecting my ego onto somebody else, basically. And so this identification of ego is something which is quite important, actually. So there is a little slide about ego and the games of ego. Let us maybe have a little look at that. So it says games of ego. So how ego interferes in our spiritual progress. Resistance comes with a situation we do not like in the drama. It traps us into the story of the drama. We lose our clarity. The irritation about the situation is ego-based and is simply the difference between what is and what the ego would like it to be. Ego needs drama situations that generate energy in order to survive and make itself seem real. So ego needs these situations that generate energy in order to survive. So ego is trying to survive here. And the real game is to identify ego and eliminate it. So effect of resistance. If I resist a person or something, what effect on the situation does resistance have? If I resist, what effect does it have? Any answers? Answer is none. Waste of energy and time. Example, car alarm goes off at 2 a.m. in my street. My irritation will not stop the alarm. Consequence of resistance. Who is the master? The situation is the master because the situation dictates our feelings. Today I came across this nice quote. It said, am I a thermometer or am I a thermostat? You know the difference between the two? Am I a thermometer or am I a thermostat? So thermometer is just whatever, it is fluctuating based on whatever. And thermostat is
controls the temperature.
Trying to control the temperature. Yeah. So we have to be thermostat. So in a situation where is the situation making me, fluctuate? So I become a thermometer, or a thermostat is, looking at the picture and trying to see how best to resolve it, things like that. Behavior, in my resistance, what is the behavior? Defensiveness, resentment, dislike, criticism, complaints, irritation, sorrow, and so on. Ego's gain. If the ego dislikes the situation, what is the gain? The energy of irritation feeds the ego and makes it seem real. It pulls us into the drama story. So when I am getting irritated, it is feeding the ego. And that's what ego wants. Ego wants to become bigger and bigger. Responsibility. Will blaming solve the problem? Ego blames to avoid the responsibility of addressing the problem and situation. So it's easy for me to then blame. When I blame, then I don't take the responsibility. Attitude. What attitude will help? Acceptance and patience. With acceptance, no irritation, and so no food for the ego. And so that's the subtle dynamics that is happening. The moment I'm being critical, irritated, it's actually feeding the ego. It's worsening the problem. But the moment I accept, the ego is starved. Acceptance. Why is acceptance a good idea? The mind remains clear, calm, and creative. Solutions come. They say criticism or comparison is doesn't allow me to be creative. The moment I go into, criticism, I stop being creative. And this we, learn a lot working in teams. It's, suppose there are 5 people and everyone has a different opinion, and how to then work. And it's very easy to say, oh, I cannot work. But then the more I'm ready, I'm accepting, then more solutions will emerge. Okay, now we can do this, now we can do this. And ultimately creativity emerges. Yeah. Was there any benefit? Instead of stress, the problem will be resolved. That will empower the real you. Right. Ego is the loser. Game over. Ego is the loser. Game over. So I have to really identify that it's nothing to do with external people, situations. It's my inner battle with ego that is happening at the core. And so once I identify that there's, there's no other option, because every other thing is actually feeding the ego. It's becoming larger, stronger. Yeah. I'll pause here. Any thoughts on this? It's like if I'm resisting, if there's energy of criticism, is basically that energy of resistance. It's like I'm resisting. I'm not going with the flow of life. And that's what is feeding the ego, making it bigger. And some like mantras that we have heard. It's like one is called, what is it? Who will say? It is NN. What is that mantra called? NN. That allows us to accept every situation, every person. What is that mantra called? NN. Who will say?
Nothing new.
Good. Yes. Nothing new. It's called nothing new. Whatever is happening, it has happened in the past. It will happen in the future. It's not new. Let me accept it. I don't need to create extra thoughts about it. Right? Right. It's like, watching a live match versus watching a recording or highlights. There's a difference, right? So when I'm watching highlights, I already know who is going to win and who is going to lose. So I won't be surprised that much. But if I'm watching a live match, I will be, right? Right. Great. Any other thoughts? And so, when we say in spirituality, surrender is very important. Samarpan, है ना? वही कहते हैं, मेरे को तेरे में बदलना. So what surrender really means is this. Surrender is the inner transition from resistance to acceptance, from no to yes. Sometimes I would say, कैसे नहीं, ऐसे नहीं सोचो कैसे होगा, सोचो कि ऐसे होगा. मतलब बुद्धि में ये पहला क्वेश्चन है, कैसे, ये कैसे नहीं, ऐसे ऐसे. कई बार पापा भी कहते कारण नहीं निवारण. कारण में नहीं जाना है, बिकॉज कारण में जाएंगे तो then we are caught up in the ego games. पर निवारण में जाना है, नहीं हो जाएगा, ऐसे होगा, सब अच्छा है, सब ठीक है. in that movie, what is it that there's a famous quote, right? What is it called? All is well. It's quite powerful, actually. Yeah.
All is well.
Mm.
The movie Three Idiots.
Right. Yeah. So then the friend asks him, will it become well if you just say all is well? So the actor says no, but you'll get the strength so that you can then find a solution.
Yeah, was exactly the affirmations to,
Mm.
and we give the affirmations to ourselves. This is how they work.
Mhm. Mhm. Right. Nice. Mm. Want to end with a story? A story. Okay. I think everyone knows the story, but the story is like this. So there is a crow, right? And a crow, everyone knows, right? The story of a crow. Who will say? You want to share the story of? Who would like to, Sanchit bhai? नहीं, नहीं, आपकी बहुत अच्छी है. Anyone wants to share the story of a crow? No. So there is this crow, and he's very depressed because he says no one likes me. सभी को लगता है कि मैं तो ऐसे ही वर्थलेस हूँ. मेरा देखो रंग भी इतना काला है, मेरी आवाज भी कितनी बेकार है. कोई मुझे अपने घर में रखता भी नहीं है, मैं पेट भी नहीं हूँ जैसे. कोई मुझे देखता है तो पत्थर मार देते हैं. मेरी लाइफ कितनी खराब है, भगवान ने मुझे कैसा बनाया. आई एम वर्थलेस. एंड सो देयर इज अ मंक. पास में एक मंक है, साधु. तो मॉन्क के पास वो मॉन्क सुन रहा होता है ये. तो मॉन्क कहता है कैन आई हेल्प यू. कहता है कैन यू डू समथिंग. सेड हाँ. तो मॉन्क कहते हैं आप क्या बनना चाहते हो, व्हाट डू यू वांट टू बिकम. तो कौवा कहता है, 1 मिनट सोचता है, फिर कहता है आई वांट टू बिकम लाइक अ स्वान. हंस. क्योंकि हंस इज सो एलिगेंट एंड completely white. It's so beautiful. I want to become like a swan. So monk says, okay, before I make you into a swan, first go and talk to a swan. तो वो स्वान के पास जाता है. तो कहते हैं स्वान आप तो बहुत खुश हैं अपनी लाइफ से. कहते किसने कहा? Who told you? Said no, you are so white and you are so elegant. Said no, white is such a dull color. I don't like white. कोई मरता है तो white color देते हैं. I'm not colorful at all. और मैं तो उतना उड़ भी नहीं पाता हूँ, पानी में ही रहता हूँ. तो I'm really not happy. तो कहते आप किसको पसंद करते हो? कहते wish I could be like a parrot. Parrot is so colorful, तो फिर ये दोनों जाते हैं मॉन्क के पास. तो कहते हैं हमें ना पैरट बना दो. तो मॉन्क कहते ठीक है, पहले पैरट से पूछ के आओ. तो पैरट के पास जाते हैं. तो पैरट के पास जाते हैं तो पैरट से पूछते हैं आप तो बहुत खुश हो. कहते किसने कहा? मैं तो बहुत दुखी हूँ. क्यों? आपका तो आप तो बोल भी सकते हो, आपको तो सब लोग इतना प्यार भी करते हैं. कहते कहाँ, मैं तो पिंजरे में कैद हूँ, मैं तो ठीक से उड़ भी नहीं पाता हूँ, है ना. और वही जो 2 लोग हैं उन्हीं के साथ मुझे बात करनी पड़ती है पूरा टाइम. मेरे भी 2 ही कलर्स हैं, एक चोंच का अलग कलर है और मेरी बॉडी का ग्रीन कलर है. और ग्रीन कलर भी ऐसा है कि पूरे दुनिया में ग्रीन ही ग्रीन है, मेरा कोई अंतर ही नहीं है. आई एम रियली नॉट हैप्पी. कहते आप क्या बनना चाहते हो? तो कहते पीकॉक. पीकॉक कितना सुंदर है, मुझे पीकॉक बनना है. तो ये तीनों जाते हैं फिर से मॉन्क के पास कि अभी हमें पीकॉक बनाओ. तो मॉन्क कहते हैं ठीक है, पीकॉक से बात करके आओ. तो जाते हैं चिड़िया जू में, जाते हैं ना वहाँ पीकॉक. तो पीकॉक को देख के कहते आप तो बहुत खुश होंगे। तो कहते किसने कहा, मैं तो बहुत दुखी हूँ। कहते क्यों, आप तो इतनी कलरफुल हो, यू आर सो ग्रेसफुल, पीपल लव यू सो मच, सब आपके साथ पिक्चर्स खिंचवाते हैं, मस्ट बी सो हैप्पी। तो पीकॉक ने कहा कि नहीं, मेरे तो फेदर्स को लोग निकालते भी हैं, उससे फिर अपनी अपनी चीजें बनाते हैं, तो मुझे दर्द भी होता है, और साथ में मैं यहाँ पे जू में हूँ, मेरी कोई इंडिपेंडेंस नहीं है, मैं कभी कभी चाहता हूँ मैं उड़ूं, उड़ के अपना टाइम बिताऊं। तो कहते हैं फिर अच्छा आप क्या बनना चाहते हो? मेरे को कौवा बहुत अच्छा लगता है। इसे लाइक अ क्रो, क्योंकि क्रो को कोई बांध भी नहीं सकता, वो अपना उड़ता है, इज सो फ्री, आई वांट टू बी लाइक अ क्रो। तो व्हाट इज द मोरल ऑफ द स्टोरी? On the others.
Contentment is within.
Right.
Everybody's trying to be something else.
Yeah. So, it's about critique, right? Like if it's like the story tells me I should be happy the way I am right now. The happiness is in being myself, actually, not in being somebody else. And the moment I accept myself, I realize my self-worth, then there's no room for actually criticizing. And if I realize my self-worth, I'll realize others' value also. Any other thoughts anyone would like to share? Add?
Om Shanti. I think personally the soul has gone into introspection after hearing this. That's why nobody is putting up their comments or sharing their comments. मैं सोच रहा हूँ अच्छा ये गलतियां करता हूँ मैं। And thank you again, Saurabh bhai. Thank you, family. Thank you.
Thank you. Om Shanti. You did say right. I mean, after listening to you, when I was like, yeah, this is right, you start questioning yourself and, the thoughts that come to your mind. So just revisiting the whole thought process. So yeah, it was a good learning experience today. Thank you.
Om Shanti. I think the overall session today was, it just opened my mind, and then it made me think about ego some more, especially the fact that ego can be so depleting, and when it's just not worth it. The energy it consumes is not worth it. If you feel depleted, it's not worth it. So I think it's so much easier to put it aside, actually. So yeah, thank you very much. Om Shanti.
I'm still thinking that I'm a thermometer. I want to be
Ajay bhai is there.
that.
Ajay bhai, welcome.
Why I'm a thermometer only?
Om Shanti, Ajay bhai.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Yeah. Shanti, Saurabh bhai, just to add to what the sister I think was mentioning, Abhi. Like when we are operating from a space of ego versus a space of expansion or openness or love, the energy is so different. I think you said Behan bhi keh rahe the ki how when we are open to that, to accept everyone and to accept ourselves, the feeling that we get, the love that we get is so different. The energy is different compared to when, we might score a point, say at work or something, when we are operating from a space of ego, but we feel hollow from inside. I really like what she was mentioning. Thank you, Saurabh, my beautiful class.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to see you soon.
Yes, absolutely. Anita Bhai, Virinder Bhai also. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be back Saurabh Monday ko, so next week milenge. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nish Bhai.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, brother. This is Nisha here.
Hello, Nisha.
Great topic, like everybody shared. I think to me, ego. I have listened about ego in different forums. I think this one topic, no matter how many times you listen, there's always every single time you learn something, because we feel like, I particularly feel like, okay, yeah, I can go and practice and apply it, which I try to do, but then it's so powerful, it can deplete, like another sister said. It can easily suck you back into that ego mindset. So listening to this topic often, it helps to bring you back, and then cleanse your soul and get matured. So I particularly like your slide, which talks about behavior, attitude, how that ego can manifest in various forms, which was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Om Shanti. It's very, very beautiful class, Saurabh, as usual. I really liked irritation feeds the ego. So we have to starve the ego and feed the soul. And acceptance, when we accept things, the mind is calmer, and then a solution can be drawn from the situation. So it's only a calm mind that gives you the solution. And accepting yourself as you are, because I always say Baba has chosen us, so accept yourself as you are. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Very nice.
Saurabh, this is Shakira. I joined late.
Hello,
I only
Shakira
the last
ji.
minutes of it, but I think you wrapped it up pretty well with regard to, you were on the slide of game of ego when I joined in, and I kind of got the gist of what was happening. But I wanted to ask you, I see that this has been recorded and I missed the first bit of it. I'd love to kind of hear the beginning of it. So if you'd be please willing to share the recording, I would appreciate.
Yeah, definitely will share.
Om Shanti. Thank you.
Just to add a quote, in fact, I've spoken about this quote earlier also. It's Buddha's quote, and it says, ego is a 3-letter word, but it destroys a 12-letter word relationship.
Right.
Very nice. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Saurabh. Beautiful class. It's so nice to see so many people in there and new people. Very nice. Welcome, everyone. I really like the way you started that negativity. It's so hard to get it out from our head when it gets in. And positive, it doesn't stay that long. Even if you are looking at, you are changing, you are going towards the, progress, but what you still getting those linger on feeling about the negativity, the drawback, that setback you felt before, and it stays longer. But jab Baba se mile, so like nothing new, everything is in the drama is Kalyankari. So that helps a lot. Or positivity, I just saw today that कई बार मुरली में भी आया, और शिवानी बहन also bring out that example, भी कोई बहुत गंदा घड़ा भरा हुआ है, गंद से उसको खाली नहीं कर सकते जब तक हम उसमें पॉजिटिविटी और प्योर वाटर उसमें नहीं डालते, तब तक वो गंदा ही रहेगा जब तक उसको पॉजिटिविटी से नहीं भरते. And they were showing that कि हम थोड़ा डालते हैं, फिर कहते हैं कुछ हो तो रहा नहीं है, and then you keep doing it. But then all of a sudden, when you keep doing it, keep putting the positivity in it, keep doing it, positive actions, and then one day you will see that all the negativity is gone. Just like holding your hose and keep filling up that dirty water pitcher or the बड़ा घड़ा या गड्ढा कुछ भी, जब आप प्योर वाटर उसमें डालते जाते हो तो सारा गंदा पानी निकल जाता है और क्लीन आ जाता है. So this is how the positivity, it works, but it works slow until we fill it up with lots of positivity. So have to work on that a lot. See positivity in every action, in every person, in every situation. So that's what my goal is. Om Shanti. And ego, that was a great tool. Yes, ego letter. Just like Sunita Van said, it's 3-letter word, but it's destroyed the 12-letter relationship. Yes. Thank you. Om Shanti. Thank you, sir.
Very nice. Mhm. Nice. Great. Any other thoughts? So I'll just maybe end with this quote I got yesterday. It says, big ego equals to big problems. Small ego equals to small problems. No ego equals to no problems.
No ego equals to solutions.
No problem solutions. That's so easy. So if there's any problem in the mind, I have to identify where is it, the ego is coming. Right? Lovely. So great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, family. Any other thoughts? Final thoughts anyone wants to add? Thank you.
I think thanks to the Supreme Soul and thanks to you, your last word, like it's so easy. So after joining, after being here for maybe more than a year, things have become a lot easier than it used to be earlier. Smaller things, we used to make it really complex, even if it was easier or simpler. And like last 1.5 years, everything, if any problem also comes, it's like simple है, हो जाएगा. अच्छा बाद में सोचना चाहिए तो थोड़ा सोचना पड़ेगा, but हो जाता है. So thank you.
Thank you. Ciao. So thank you. So have a nice rest of the evening. Hello to Bindu Ben, Vishal Bhai, Archana Ben, Harsh Bhai, Suparna Ben.
एक चीज बोलना चाह रहा था सौरभ भाई. ओम
जी
शांति.
विशाल भाई.
So have you heard of the story of Hansel and Gretel?
Was that Harsh Bhai? Sorry, Vishal Bhai.
Hansel and Gretel का story सुना है आपने?
नहीं.
So they're two they're siblings and they're caught by a witch and उसके वो father को बताते हैं, which is like more like a stepmother, you know, just for context. तो बहुत दुखी होते हैं बेचारे, मतलब when they are like very, they said कि हमको अभी यहाँ से निकलना पड़ेगा. So think about like the ego thing that you're talking about. So if we make a decision that हमको निकलना पड़ेगा, so they said कि what we'll do is we'll take bread with us and we'll put crumbs in the jungle, and if we get lost, we'll come back, right? So when I think about it, our mistakes are those breadcrumbs that lead us to that path, right? हमें हमेशा रहता है क्या हो गया, क्यों कर दिया, you know, like that. And then after they're not left with any more breadcrumbs, they see a big thing, light उनको बहुत बड़ी दिखती है, and that's the gingerbread house. And they're so happy because the thing was, if they get into a gingerbread house, they could eat something, and then witch unko kuch nahi kar payegi. So think about witch as an ego, and then these breadcrumbs are our kind of like mistakes we do, and we ponder over them a lot, right? कुछ किसी को गलत कह दिया तो हो गया ना, तो अगली बार तुम्हें फिर वो chance मिलेगा. Then try to not do the same thing again. And then ultimately, if you keep going on, ये जंगल है पूरा जिसमें हम जा रहे हैं, right? And then ultimately there is that everybody's looking for that ray of light. And that's kind of, so these mistakes are breadcrumbs to knowledge, that if we take them properly, I think we can get there.
Lovely.
Om Shanti Sarabhai.
Thank you for sharing, Vishal bhai. It's a really nice story. Right. Okay. So thank you everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sarabhai. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Baba.
Thank
you,
you.
Shanti. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you. Bye.